Well, good day and welcome once again to Moments with Dr. Steve. I'm Dr. Steve Bonenberger, and on this day, we focus on biblical wisdom. And for us, in this chunk of our world and our life and our progression, we're pushing through the Gospel of John, chunk by chunk, splinter by splinter, and we're just in the very initial stages. And so, as I was starting to do the research for this day's work, I thought to myself, I wonder what it was like for John. And as we march through these initial chunks of the Gospel of John, my mind races to what it must have been like for him and to be him. And he was locked away at this part of his life as he's writing his gospel on a place called Patmos. That was an island that is now called the Isle of the Apocalypse. Isn't that interesting? John had lived a life in full. He began his allegiance with Jesus at an early age. He morphed into John the Beloved in the Gospels, and that was who he was. But he became the oldest living sage that the Christian church had at that time. And he was one of the original apostles, and he was granted the task of caring for the mother of Christ at the crucifixion. He became a personality that burned with this quiet passion and had this caring about him. He performed miracles and walked and talked and personified what it meant to be a Christ follower. And he was one of the original sons of thunder. His thunder came not from bluster, but rather from this intensity of his relationship with Jesus Christ, who was his cousin, I believe. Well, we can check me on that. He was also one of the original three disciples. He was an early adopter of Christianity. He was one who bothered the Roman Empire so much that they tried poisoning him and boiled him in oil, and apparently had him oxen crushed and rushed, and he survived all of those attempts to quell his message and by ending his life. And he was the one that received these messages that you and I are living at this very moment. His gospel is that a reflective piece of literature. It's filled with insights and wisdom and knowledge sets that come only from a life well lived as a constant and determined disciple and follower of Christ. By the way, he and his cohorts turned their world upside down. May we go and do likewise. Now let's dive into the work. In John 1:6 to 1:34, there are four main sections or headers to this story of John the Baptist, who is now introduced into John's gospel. John the Beloved talks of John the Baptist, and John the Baptist was a witness, he was a prophet, he was a baptizer, he was a confessor of the faith. And some of my favorite verses of scripture of all time are locked inside of this tiny cache of scriptural history. And some of my favorite explanations of faith are put forth in the description by John the Beloved Apostle in his explanation and introduction of John the Baptist. And we're going to plow into those. Now, what John wants us to know, John the Baptist, is that he's not the true light. The true light of Jesus Christ lights up every person who ever enters the world. Jesus came into the world and invaded human history. John the Baptist and John the Beloved, these two men and his contemporaries wanted us to know about them. Jesus made and created the world that he invaded, and the world he invaded was clueless and went about its business and would have ignored him if they would have had the choice, but they were not given that choice, and neither are we, by the way. He came to his own and they received him not. We're talking of John the Baptist here. This is cosmic and universal rejection of God. This is the complete and utter non-fascination with divinity. This is human hubris and pride and self-adulation gone absurd. But to those who received him, this is indeed one of my favorite verses in the Bible. You will often hear me say, I receive. And the reason that I say that is that receive is the one clear identifying principle that we have in Scripture that speaks directly to the core of Jesus Christ. But to as many as received him. What does it mean to receive Christ? To receive has at least these very practical, down-to-earth, bedrock characteristics and features. To take hold of, to grasp, to seize, as to cling with for your life, to carry with you as in everyday life, to claim as your own as in every personal possession that you have that is priceless, to craft as in allow the power of the possession to reshape and redirect your life, to hand select as in to sort through lesser offers and realize that the quality of the choice you have made is superior to the other options that might be presented, to gain as in to comprehend that this is indeed a decision of incomparable and inestimable value. To receive means these things at least. To them gave he power to become sons and daughters of God. If you're around me, I say this a lot. Inside of this tiny fragment of Scripture is packed the essence of the experience of a life that chooses hand in hand and personally selects to follow Jesus as Christ, as Lord. To receive Christ is a decision, and it opens up a channel of becoming a ta teknon theon. Let's unpack power. The word is dunamis, a unique and important quotient that stretches and provides capacity to those who choose to receive Christ, children of the living God. It's the oldest prescription and identifying marker that we have on record for those of us that are Christ followers. Our first ancestors and forebearers of the faith were called children of the living God. It's the oldest prescription. It's the oldest identifying marker that we have on record that describe those who choose to follow Christ. Build a life takeaway. Build a life takeaway. Recognize that all goodness that resides inside of you originated in the mind and life of Jesus Christ. That is a truth that is absolutely inexorable. Jesus Christ invades human lives today. Yeah. He's tapping on your shoulder. He's tapping on your heart. He's tapping on your mind. The sense and the pull, the desire to know God, that sense that your life requires more from you is evidence of the mind and will of God that is pulling you towards him. God extracts darkness from ourselves. All of us have walked and strode and sidled up to and even coddled with darkness. You cannot have lived long and not been caught or noticed square dancing with the devil and his cohorts. It's not possible. That's what humans have done. But when you start to come close to God, you start to realize that it's impossible to know the wreckage that all of us have caused on other humans, and that the light of Christ summons us to become reacquainted with his power and then to diminish and delete our own. Receive Christ means that we claim him as our own. Receive Christ means we submerge and immerse ourselves in his wisdom, his knowledge, with the outcome being to become, notice we don't arrive, there's a big difference, to become the person that walks towards the long-shore destination of being a child of the living God. God's power then brings salvation. God's power then brings salvation. If you want to talk to us, we're building a GCC, a global cultural conversation. Go to saintalegius.org, saintalegius.org. Join the global cultural conversation. We'd like to hear from you. Leave us a note. Till next time, I'm Dr. Steve Bonneberger, and this is Moments with Dr. Steve. Travel far.